Hello, good evening, everybody, and welcome to the BAFTA Q&A with Eva Riley and Frankie Box, the director and lead of the film Perfect 10. My name is Pat Kelman. I'm the distributor of the film, and yeah, I'm feeling very privileged and very fortunate to be able to have this conversation this evening, particularly here at BAFTA. So I think a good place to start. Eva, just thinking about the kind of genesis, well, actually even before the genesis of the project, what brought you into filmmaking? What were your inspirations?
What brought me into filmmaking? It wasn't something I wanted to do from when I was a teenager or anything. I was quite interested in acting when I was a teenager, similarly to Frankie. But then I kind of went off that. I got into photography, and I did a degree course in photography and film at university. And I ended up kind of getting drawn into the film side of things because I really liked how it kind of mixed up acting and image making, and also I really like the social side of, I loved hanging out on sets, and also I loved writing. So it just felt like I could do a lot of different things. And then that was a long time ago, the beginning, but as I went on, I started to realize I could take it more seriously as a career. And I've always loved it.
Great, lovely. And yeah, so obviously you had success prior to making Perfect 10 with your short film career.
Yeah.
Could you just fill us in a little bit about your background with where, I know where you trained and your experience with shorts?
Yeah, so I first of all, like I said, I did a course in Edinburgh at Napier University doing photography and film. That's where I got interested in it. And then when I left university, I got some funding. I applied to different funds to get money to make short films, and I made I think 2 or 3 short films in that time. And then off the back of those short films, I applied to the National Film and Television School in London, got in there and made some more short films. And then I made another short film through the BBC Films straight after I graduated from there. So I made quite a few, maybe like 8 short films up until I made Perfect 10, which was a really great training ground, because you just make lots of mistakes and learn from them the next time you make a short film. And I really love the kind of form of short films as well. So it was a really great period for learning how to make films.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, you then had success with Patriot.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
which I felt had some kind of qualities in common with the work in Perfect 10.
Yeah, it does. I think there's like a good kind of follow-on, like Patriot and Perfect 10 is definitely a follow-on feel. I think Patriot, I was the first time it's a different subject matter completely, but it's the first time I really started to use improvisation with actors and work with first-time actors, and kind of had a really good experience with my DP. And just like, I think I learned a lot of things there, and the kind of style I was going for was kind of similar, this kind of intimate kind of realism, I guess, I was going for in Perfect 10 as well. So
yeah, and of course that was then selected for the main competition, shorts competition at Cannes.
Yeah, that was really exciting. It was so much fun. Yeah.
Absolutely. And Frankie, welcome. Great to finally chat to you. For those of you who are watching, Eva and Frankie and I haven't actually met, even though I am the distributor of the film. We've had lots of emails and lots of chats, but not any kind of talking like this. But yeah, Frankie, can you tell us a little bit about your background prior to Perfect 10? Sorry, my watch has decided it's time to talk to me.
I have no background in acting before Perfect 10. It was my gymnastics coach saw it on Facebook, advert for it, and she was like, "Oh, give that a go. It looks like fun." So I went up for like a chat with Eva, did that and a couple of auditions, one with Alfie, and then I got the part, and I was very happy.
Yeah. So you were talking about your gymnastics coach. I think you're hiding a lot of talent under a bushel there, Frankie. Tell us about your kind of gymnastics career and that stuff before the film.
Oh yeah, so I've been doing gymnastics since I was like 7, and I've been to a couple of different clubs, and then I used to do like sort of normal gymnastics, so floor, beam, bars, vault, and I just found it not boring, just too strict. So I changed to a discipline called team gym, which is trumpet, vault and floor, if that like makes any sense.
Great. Yeah, carry on.
It's basically like the gymnastics, just with more flips and less, no beam, no bars. And I've competed at British Championships a few times.
Great.
I would have gone this year if COVID didn't ruin it.
Yeah. And brilliant. And Eva, so I guess the question with Perfect 10 is, why gymnastics? What was the appeal?
Yeah, I don't know, I kind of found myself going down at some point like a rabbit hole online of like watching lots of gymnastics videos, and I don't know quite how I came across it, to be honest. It was years ago now, but I just got really interested in gymnastics, especially the floor routines, and I started to learn about the different apparatus that gymnasts use. And it was especially the floor routine that I loved, because it has this kind of mix of technical ability, like amazing technical ability. It's just unbelievable what gymnasts can do, and also this kind of emotional side. So with a female artistic gymnast, they have music, and you know, it's very much about expressing themselves on the floor. And when it worked in these videos, I found them really emotional, I found them really moving. But sometimes I would watch a video and it was like the gymnast was just doing the technical stuff, but they weren't really connecting with the music and they weren't expressing themselves in the same way as like a singer can sing well sometimes, but not really be emotive, you know? And sometimes they can. So I was really interested in that. And it kind of tagged on to this idea that I'd already started to think about, which is about a brother and sister. I wanted to do something about brother and sister, sort of hanging out in the countryside. I had this sort of image of that. And I thought that would be a cool thing for the lead character, the sister in that, to be doing that. And I also kind of started to realize that gymnastics is something that's quite tricky, you know, like it can cost a lot of money to be involved in it. It's obviously a competitive element. It's very, you know, it's a hugely demanding thing to be involved in. So I thought, well, what about if we had a young girl and she was kind of struggling to cope in this world? And that's kind of what led me to including it in the film. Oh, your sound has gone, Pat.
Yeah. Sorry, I just muted myself because my dog's decided to start barking as well. And I want everyone to be focusing on you rather than being distracted by me. Okay. So so I guess you were talking about its relationship with brother and sister. Was that kind of the initial impetus for you?
Yeah, I don't know why. I just had this kind of image. I start an idea for a film with a kind of image that kind of really goes around my head a lot. And it was just this image. It was actually an image of a brother and sister on like a bike or something like that. And actually it's funny because that's almost like one of the final images in the film is them on a bike. And I just had this image and I thought, brother and sister, not really seen that too much on film before. And that's where I went from, yeah.
Okay, and so with your kind of writing process for the film, basically, how did you go about it, I guess? How did you go about it?
Well, with a lot of pain and stress and hard work. It was a very long process because it was my first feature film, and it was a really, really big leap from writing shorts. And now I feel much happier. I'm writing my next feature, and I'm happier writing that. But I really had no idea what I was doing in terms of the structure, mainly because it is really hard. Anyone who's tried to write a first feature, it's really hard to get the structure right. And also it's a very complicated film. Well, I think the final film was quite simple in a way, but at the beginning, we had a brother and sister relationship, we had gymnasts, we had motorbike crime, and we had this kind of family relationship in the background. And it just felt like this really big thing, and I needed to sort of bring it in. So I had a lot of support. I went through the iFeatures process, which is really good. It's a development program for early stage kind of ideas. So I had a lot of support through that. I had really good script editors. I had like 2 or 3 who were really helpful. And it was just basically a lot of time, me sitting at a desk and just bashing out different ideas. I went on different paths. It went very genre, sometimes very kind of crime genre-y. Sometimes I got a bit caught up with a kind of traditional sports film thing. Neither of those felt right, so I kind of needed to sort of scrap them at some point. And then I think there was one weekend where I was writing and I suddenly realized, okay, this is just about a brother and sister. Let's keep this really small, and all the elements like gymnastics and motorbikes in the background, and really lift up that brother and sister relationship to the forefront of it. And I think when I did that, it became a lot easier to finish it off. So it took a long time though, I think more than 2 years to write it.
Yeah. And of course the relationship of the brother and sister is so fundamental to the whole story. Yeah. And yeah, so Frankie was telling us about her gymnastics coach giving her a kind of pointer about this audition. So I guess what was the kind of casting process like for you? And because Lucy Pardy did your casting with you, didn't you?
Yeah, so Frankie, so Lucy is an amazing casting director who's so experienced at casting first-time actors. She just cast Rocks as well. She's just coming out, and she's just really, really good at that. So we met lots of gymnasts through social media, and we just reached out to lots of different clubs. And we met lots of different gymnasts, and then also for the boy part, we had sort of casting scouts who would go around different parts of the sort of the coastal areas around the South Coast, basically, and chat to different boys and ask them to come in, which is a much harder task because it's kind of hard. It's quite a random thing to get asked when you're a 17-year-old boy, like, come along to this audition. So a lot of boys were just like, no, or reasonably very suspicious, I guess, of them. But Alfie did come along, and we had a big sort of group audition for the boys, and Alfie was just like really amazing. I was like, who is this guy? He's so cool, and he's so chatty, and like, Frankie, you know what Alfie's like. He's just a ball of energy. He's absolutely amazing. So I was like, okay, cool, we have to see this guy again. With Frankie, it was a bit different. We had like a sort of first interview with her, and then we did a sort of group audition, the second stage, and then slowly we started to bring different combinations of boys and girls together. And it was very, very clear from Frankie and Alfie's first audition. I didn't know that it was definitely going to be them at that point, but it was very clear that there was something very special going on between them. Yeah, what was that like for you, Frankie, that audition with Alfie?
I mean, I'd spoke to Alfie for like probably 15 minutes before we even did like an audition together, because I think it was like Hastings or something that we went to.
Hastings, yeah.
Yeah, and I don't even think we was like in an audition together, but he was waiting and I was waiting, and we was both talking to each other while we was waiting.
Yeah.
And then when he like came back again for the one, like for the second one, I was like, oh my God, Alfie's back. And yeah, even from when we just sat in the waiting room,
yeah,
like where we was waiting, even then we was still like joking around with each other, laughing with each other. And then I was quite happy to see him again. Like,
was that the one in London, you mean?
Yeah, because there was one where we was like both there, but we didn't actually do anything together, I don't think.
No, I think you did the first. I think you're forgetting the first time you did do. I think you chatted for ages, and then you did a bit of acting together as well.
Yeah, we did. I'm lying.
You definitely did.
I'm lying.
But then there was a second. Yeah, the second.
Yeah, and then the second one, when I already knew I had the part.
Yeah, that was different. Yeah.
He came, and I was like, so much easier when you already know.
And it was the second audition that you did together. Yeah. So at that point, we'd given Frankie the part, and we hadn't given Alfie the part yet. So Frankie auditioned with sort of 4 or 5 different boys, and it was just so obvious at that point that it should be Frankie and Alfie. And Alfie was just made me laugh so much, honestly. Like, me and Lucy after was just crying with laughter. Just like he did these really funny improvisations. There's this whole thing about Spain. There used to be a part in the script that's not in the film, which is about the character Joe wanting to go and live in Spain, and Alfie did this unbelievable improvisation about dolphins. Do you remember, Frankie?
Oh yeah, when he was like, oh, you got to say something about like this happening, and then you move out to Spain. And
yeah,
it's all about like riding dolphins out there.
Started talking about he wanted to get a jet ski and like go and like swim with dolphins and stuff, and it was just amazing. I was like, this guy is incredible. So after that, I was like, okay, Alfie's got the part for sure.
Because that's one thing that comes across really strongly in the film is the chemistry between Frankie and Alfie.
Definitely,
and so Frankie, what was it about Alfie, do you think, that particularly kind of clicked with you?
In some ways, we're so similar. Like, we have the same sort of jokes, the same sort of banter that we'll have together. Like, when we wasn't filming, we was constantly like crying with laughter when we was not on camera. And then if the camera wasn't on one of us, but it was on the other one would be like making faces behind the camera, like silly things like that. And we just clicked straight away. And we have, even now, like a very brother-sister relationship. He always messages me, asks how I'm doing. I was going to go up to Canberra to go and see him, but all like COVID and stuff, and it's made it a bit difficult.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
Yeah, it's just so nice. Like, it's so nice to work with two actors who get on the whole time throughout the shoot, because it would be horrible. It'd be easy to fall out or get bored of each other, but you guys were always just having a laugh, so it was really nice.
Yeah, and that's one thing that comes across so beautifully in the film, I think, is that you know, it's and as a distributor, what I'm always looking for when I'm looking for a film to release is some kind of emotional honesty and a truthfulness between the performance in the film, and that's something that's really strong in Perfect 10. You know, the relationship between you know, Frankie and Alfie, between, you know, the two characters, and yeah. So how much of that was scripted? And how much improvisation took part in it during the process of actually making the film? Let's move into that kind of area now.
Yeah, so that's an interesting question. I've been asked that quite a few times. I'm always trying to work out some kind of figure in my head, but I think I've come to like maybe like 70%. When I say scripted, I mean dialogue wise, as in people sometimes get confused and think that we kind of made up the story on the spot. You know, that's not like that. The story is the same as the script, and the turning points within the scenes, like the emotional turning points, are pretty much the same. But in terms of dialogue, you know, like I've said so many times, I'm not a teenager. Like I'm a 34-year-old. How old am I? I don't know, 30-something-year-old woman. I've forgotten how old I am. You know, so I like, there's a limit to what I can do in the dialogue, and I also, as well as wanting them to sort of create their own dialogue, I just think acting is best when it's as spontaneous as possible. So I think when you can kind of create the conditions for spontaneity and dialogue changing, but having that within the structure of a scene which is kind of being pre-created, then it's just beautiful. So there's some scenes where, you know, the dialogue would be pretty much the same as the script, and then there's some scenes where it's wildly different, and some scenes where it's like a mix. So for instance, there's a scene where they're eating apples and they're in a field and they're talking about Lee's mum having passed away, and like, oh my god, that is so improvised, that scene, because I wasn't super happy. I didn't want that scene to be really cheesy. I wanted it to be kind of heartfelt and honest, you know. So I felt like the best way for that to happen was it kind of some of it to come from them themselves. And so I gave Frankie a lot of ownership of that scene, and we talked about it. Do you remember, Frankie, that scene?
That's so many different ways.
Oh god, yeah.
At times we redone that scene, and each time it was like completely different. There was not one that was similar to the one before.
Yeah, and that was because you know, like, I don't know if anyone else feels this, but you know, when you're when you're sad and you're saying something, you know, it's sometimes really hard to say something that's sad, and sometimes it's like you don't know what you're going to say until it kind of spills out.
Yeah.
And I guess that's what I was trying to get to. I didn't want Frankie just to say it the same way every single time. She knew kind of what it had to be, but I would feed different ideas and different takes and just let them get on with it. And also I wanted Alfie's reaction to feel genuine, because there's only so many times you can act sad. You know what I mean? Like, you need to be reacted to something new every time, and that's the same with all actors, you know, not just first-time actors. So that scene was really improvised. Yeah, most of the dialogue scenes. There's a scene where they're stealing petrol, and a lot of it, in the early part of that scene, is quite on script because there's some technical stuff happening with, you know, petrol leaking and things like that. But when they actually sit down and are in one place, they're kind of changing around the dialogue a lot. And it's a bit scary. I think if I hadn't done it before in other short films, I would have maybe been more nervous and maybe sort of reined it in a bit more. But because I've done it on at least 2 short films before, I felt more confident about it. And I guess you just have to have the kind of blind faith that you know, it's like a shopping list. You know, okay, I need to get them to say roughly this, roughly this, roughly this, roughly this. And once you've got it, you're like, okay, this is basically going to go together. Yeah.
Yeah, and there's a huge amount of trust involved in that, isn't there?
Yeah.
And that close relationship that you must build as a director with with the actors as well.
Yeah, and I think it's just about doing it from the beginning. So Frankie, do you remember from our auditions, you were always improvising, weren't you? You were basically never really doing anything with scripted lines. So I think if you did it that you use script in the auditions and then you suddenly got to improvise in the shoot, it might be more difficult. And also we just kind of got to know each other quite well, didn't we, Frankie? So you know what I mean? I think we could be quite straightforward with each other. Like I would sort of say, it's not working, or that's amazing, or, you know, and I think you have to get on well with your actors. Did you feel that, Frankie?
Yeah, no, I thought me and you got on great, like while we was...
Yeah, it was good fun.
And even before, like you came around my house and all that sort of thing, and you saw my bedroom.
I saw your bedroom, yeah, exactly. And it was inspired, like the colour of Frankie's bedroom in real life at that time was the same colour as Lee's bedroom, because I just thought
it was like purple.
Yeah, it was really nice. I really liked it. So yeah.
So we've actually got a couple of questions starting to come in from the audience, which are relevant to what we're talking about right now. So the first question is from somebody who's anonymous, and it's a question for the two of you. What was the most challenging part of the process for you?
Okay. Do you have one, Frankie, or shall I go?
You can go first.
Okay. There was, if I'm honest, there was very many challenging parts of the process because it was a low budget film, and you know, I had a great sense of responsibility to the actors in the film, and it was just a very stressful film to make. But I'd say probably the most stressful part was actually pre-production. So, getting everything ready for the film. That's when I really, really felt very stressed out, because I guess the pre-production was the time for me where all the things that I wanted to happen in the film and the script met with reality, like budgets and, crewing up and trying to find locations and things, and realizing that we were really had a small budget. So that was really, really hard, because I really felt like if I don't get all these things in place in pre-production, it's going to be really, really hard on the set. I'm not going to have the means to make my film. So I needed, to really, there was kind of assumptions about, how long the shoot would be, which was shorter than I would have wanted to do. So I had to really push for things like a longer, more shooting days and things like that. So I really felt like, oh God, this could all just collapse and really go very badly unless we get these things in place. And then once that was over and actually started shooting, even though there was definitely stressful points, it was so much better. And then during the shoot, I guess we lost a day or so because of various reasons, and that was pretty stressful, but it wasn't as stressful as the whole of pre-production. Okay.
And so Frankie, during the actual filming itself, what were the things that you found kind of difficult as you were working?
I mean, I loved being on set. I was actually sad every day when they'd be like, oh, you're done now, because I was only 15 when we shot it, so I couldn't be on set for like a really long time. There was a certain amount of hours that I'd be on set for, and then I'd have to go. But like, I'd say the most difficult thing at the time, I was ill. I was on my way to like an illness that's been all sorted out now. My stomach doesn't work, so I had to have like a feeding tube and all that last year, but it's all good now. So sometimes eating would be a bit difficult, and we'd have to like change the times that I ate, and then just all that happening probably was the only thing that made it slightly more difficult for me, because I was you were definitely more tired on some days, weren't you? Like just really stressed about everything, so it did seem hard for you, for sure. The actual filming didn't make it like any worse at all. It was just some days my stomach would be like, I'm going to work a little bit, and then other days it would be like just wouldn't work with me at all and just cause me pain, and I'd be like, oh my God, I just want to get it all done, but then I can't.
It's astonishing to think actually that you were seriously ill during the filming of the film.
Great.
And when we look at your work on camera and just see it in a cinema, you would never guess. And of course, that must also have been very difficult with like the scenes that were quite physical, like the tumbling scenes in particular.
Not really, to be honest, because I was ill for I've had this illness probably since I was like 11, 12, 13. So by that point, it was normal for me. I thought, oh, every time after someone eats, they're sick, or every time after someone eats, they're in really bad pain. So I was like, oh, I've just got to suck it up. Like, it is what it is. So because I'd had that for so long and I'd been training for years, like a couple of years with this condition, I just got used to it. So it didn't bother me as such. So it was no different to my normal life.
Wow.
And doing gymnastics with all this going on, because that's how it had been for well over a year. And then unfortunately, after I finished filming, my health just sort of gradually started to get worse and worse. I think where I was like getting older, and it's around that time when your body really starts to need more food. And then that's kind of when my body went, actually, you're on your own, and kind of stopped working on me.
That's so shit.
Wow. But I mean, the great thing is that you, and it's been in the papers and stuff. So I mean, we don't need to talk about it too much about what happened. But the the short thing being that your gym, your club, and various other interested people organised a crowdfunder to actually cover the cost of your operation. Yeah, and I think the most important thing is that you're fit and well now.
Yeah, pretty much got a normal life again. Just the odd hospital visit, but I'm healthy now. I can eat, I can drink, I can go out. It's great.
Amazing.
Fantastic. Before we come on to some more other questions that are coming up from the Q&A, and if anybody does have any questions, please feel free to put them into the Q&A box, and I'll do my best to get them covered as we go along. And also we'll have some time at the end. But I think, with this being a conversation for BAFTA, I'm just quite interested also in terms of things like the look of the film. Because one of the things that I thought was most exciting about the film was that it wasn't your typical kind of dour looking slightly, and please nobody watching take any offense at me saying that, but that kind of, we have this idea of what a British kind of naturalistic film looks like, and this doesn't look like that at all. So would you like to chat about that?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I mean, asked like quite a few questions about kind of British film in general, or like where it sits within that. I mean, I don't really think like that when I'm making film. For me, it's like, well, I remember what it's like to be a teenager, and I have lots of memories of it, and it's very kind of quite a visceral time, I guess. So much is changing, and especially in the summers, it's this time when there's just like lots happening, like so much can happen over a summer when you're a teenager, my God. And I live in Brighton, that's why I set it there, and it is very sunny and hot, and like from teenagers I know, or teenagers I've worked with and stuff like that, they're just very full of life, and they are very colourful, and I didn't want it to be kind of colourful in like a really over designed way. I just wanted it to feel like natural, but to kind of infuse colour, energy, and light and sunshine in the film. Obviously the sunshine thing is a bit tricky because even though Brighton is sunny, like it can sometimes obviously not be sunny. So, but Stephen Cameron Ferguson, my DP, is just an amazing person, amazing DP, and he worked so well with me in pre-production, and we did spend hours working together trying to find like a look for the film. And we were really lucky with a lot of the exterior scenes. We were so lucky that it was really sunny, but also like we have to give a lot of credit for to Stephen for the interior scenes, because every interior scene was artificially lit. And he was always bringing this kind of fake sunshine into the rooms in a really subtle way, which I really loved. And that was just all through our kind of conversations. And then like alongside that, my design team, so my production designer Sarah Jennison and my costume designer Susie Coulthard, they were so on board with like what I wanted look wise, infusing color, but not in this like really contrived way throughout the film. And like there's like amazing things like this orange t-shirt that's like a big part of the film that Susie found, and it's just exactly what I wanted. It's like quite a big part of the story, and it's a subtle thing. It's not like a big bright brassy orange. It's like this kind of like rusty orange, which feels more realistic, but it's like this color which kind of lifts the characters in visually and the film, I guess. And also, you know, it's gymnastics. There's so much color in gymnastics. We were so lucky the gymnastics club we were at was just full of color. All the walls had this amazing pastel-y cool colors on it, which we just used. We're so happy with that. And then we found some really cool leotards for Frankie. So I was so happy with like the way, you know, the way it looks. It's exactly kind of what I was going for. And then, you know, in terms of, you know, camera movements alongside, you know, the lighting and the color and everything like that, we were going for like a sort of reactive cinematography, I guess you might call it, a sort of, you know, being, you know, reacting to what actors are doing, but also very designed. So it's interesting. A lot of people think, oh, the whole thing's handheld and close-ups, but actually it's not. There's some stuff is not handheld, some stuff is not close-up. But it's just to give you that feeling where you're always with main character, and Frankie's basically like in every shot of the film. But sometimes that can be a wider shot, but it's just framed in a way to make you feel like she's the center of the image, I guess. So yeah, that's my potted talk about the photography.
and Frankie, with you being in pretty much every frame of the film, every shot of the film, how was your relationship with the camera crew? Did you build up a kind of rapport with them? Did Stephen have much to chat with you about stuff?
I mean, we sort of had to, because he was chasing me down the boat, chasing me after the tumble. So he almost had to learn my routine with me to know where I was going to be so we didn't collide. And so we had to talk a lot about that, sort of what direction I'd be travelling in before I was travelling there. And the scene in the car park, that one was, you know, where I'm doing backflips around by the... Yeah, so that bit there was improvised. Eva was like, oh, just go do some dancing and a couple of flips and stuff. So that one was probably harder because I was kind of had to go in the same directions each time so we wouldn't...
Oh, yeah. But what about when you were actually, it's a really good question, Pat. I don't think she's ever been asked that. What about when you were just acting and just doing like normal dialogue scenes and stuff like that? Were you very aware of the camera team and stuff around you, or?
At the beginning, it was really strange because I've never had to the first thing that we did was the one on the bar at the beginning.
Yeah.
So I had to hang upside down and then I'd open my eyes and there was just a camera there.
Camera and like 20 people, like.
Yeah, there was like a sound person and like the makeup people were looking around the corner. But at first I think it was quite overwhelming how many people there was involved. But after a while, because I was doing it every day and I just started to get used to it and you almost forget he's there.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I do think, you know, I spoke to Tima quite a lot beforehand about just trying to keep things, you know, out of actors' faces and stuff like that. Obviously, there's a certain, you know, you can't avoid, there's a camera,
Yeah.
like they're just there. But I think it's really important to kind of keep the technical stuff kind of away from the actors as much as possible. Frankie, I would say, is like a natural continuity though. I don't know where this came from, but just like, I didn't know what was going on, but suddenly I was like, what are you doing, Frankie? And she was like, oh yeah, this is where my face was last time or whatever. So you became really aware of like the technicalities of acting, which was just blew my mind because you got through it so quickly. So you must have been aware of that process, which was really great because it was very useful for us editing it.
I think it's just because I found it so... Because obviously I'd never been on the other side of a film before. So I was so interested as to how everything worked. And I was so shocked how it all worked that I kind of just took it in. And I was like, oh, and it was just always in the back of my mind.
You took it in so quickly, though. It was just amazing. It was really helpful.
I just found it so interesting and amazing that this is how a film kind of comes together.
It was so funny because I on purpose never ever talked to first time actors about continuity. I would never mention it because it's just something I don't want them to think about at all, and it's kind of my thing to work out. So it was just so interesting that you still picked up on it, you know.
Brilliant. And you were talking about editing a moment ago. You just kind of mentioned it, Eva, and. So I guess, you know, with improvisation and so on, I mean, the film itself is a tight 83 minutes.
Yes.
Was it always that way after the first edit?
It was so funny because on the last day of the shoot, my continuity woman, Anna, came up to me and she said, I've estimated the length of the film and it's going to be 3 hours and 20 minutes. And I was like, okay, what? No, I don't think it's going to be that long. But obviously that's because it's based on the improvising and stuff like that. But I knew it wasn't going to be that long. I mean, the first cut, I think, was maybe like 100 minutes. And then it just kind of went down a little bit. And I just had an amazing editor, this guy called Abul Fazl Talouni, who I've worked with before. And he just kind of knows, I don't know, we're a good team and we're kind of good at kind of sifting out the good material and like really we keep it quite loose, the improvised scenes, and then we get really brutal and just like start to cut. Sometimes there'd be like a whole scene that we take out because we're like, don't like that. Or we take out like my favorite line of dialogue. There's a couple of lines of dialogue that I was really sad about getting rid of. But if it just doesn't work, you have to think about the greater good of the film, you know. And after 12 weeks of like sleeping on someone's floor, editing, you're like, you know what, I don't care, just get it out. Just as long as the final film's good. So yeah, it was fun editing it.
So it's 12 weeks of sleeping. So you actually stayed with the editor?
Not every day, but like, so I live in Brighton and my editor lives in London. He's a good friend of mine. And yeah, basically I would go back from the weekends to Brighton and then I'd travel on like a Monday to London and I'd stay with him and his very lovely long-suffering girlfriend who had me in her house for like 12 weeks. Yeah, and we'd just get up early and just edit and then, you know, have dinner together at night. And it's actually, I do like it. I kind of like these relationships in film, like I like to be close to people I'm working with, you know, because I think you just get so much more done when you're seeing each other as much as possible. Do you know what I mean? You don't have to have small talk or anything like that. You just kind of work and can talk really directly.
Yeah, great. And yeah, so Frankie, well, are there any scenes that aren't in the film that you particularly enjoyed doing?
It was just, I don't think there's I can't remember any of the ones that in particular, but when I watched it, it kind of all started to make sense to me. Like the scenes that I'd done, because when I was doing them, I was like, why am I doing this? Like, where's it go? What's it gonna do?
Yeah.
And when I watched it, I was like, oh, so that tiny bit of the film took 2 days to like shoot. And I was so shocked by it. There was a few where it was like, I'm trying to think of some of the ones. There's like ones with these little kids.
Oh yeah, that just didn't really work.
I remember doing that and I was like, oh, that's not in it. And then like a few of the other ones that we'd done. And then obviously the ones that I had done, it all started to make sense. Like where I had to paint the shells and was painting.
Oh, the shells, yeah. Oh yeah, there was a cute little shell and there's like a bit of painting like a nail polish on a shell. I just thought it looked kind of cute. So I got Frankie to do it. But sometimes like, I don't like to over explain things. Sometimes can we just do it? And and you were very amenable to me most of the time. And yeah, so I can see how it must have been such a weird experience to watch the whole thing.
Yeah, because when I was like doing it, I was like, oh, like what's this going to make to like the story? Because I roughly knew the story.
Yeah.
It's just like, where's this come in? And then when I watched it all together, I was like, oh, that's where that went. And why to do this? And because we didn't shoot it in like the order of the.
Yeah, it's actually interesting. We shot we probably shot it in order more than most films. So probably if you do another film, Frankie, it'll even be even more crazy.
Yeah.
Shot out of order. But so most things were in order, but like most of the big scenes, like of the emotional story of them, but then a lot of things we just had to shoot out of order. Yeah, I would have in an ideal world, I'd have things even more in order because it's much more clear for the actors, like what the journey they're going on is, but you can't have everything.
Great. Oh, lovely. We've got a couple of questions to talk about, but just before that, the film premiered at the London Film Festival.
Yeah.
How was that for, obviously, Eva, you'd had the experience of being to Cannes before with Patriot, but how was that for both, how was the experience of having a big kind of glam premiere at the London Film Festival?
Yeah, it was great. I was 9 months pregnant and like full of hormones and just like, oh my God, am I going to give birth? That was like my overriding thought. But I was so happy because I was really worried actually that I would give birth early and like not be able to go to it. And I just was like, that's going to be so annoying because I've worked in this film so long. And it was lovely, wasn't it, Frankie? It was just so nice.
Yeah.
We did a Q&A on stage and we had a nice audience. And it's just, you work so hard at something and you want that time to for people to watch it. And there's nothing like I'm always forget every time I make a film that when you watch it with an audience, it's such a different experience. And there was like a particularly good audience that night. We had an audience who were really engaging with it and laughing and gasping and stuff like that. So it was really cool. I loved it. What about you, Frankie?
It was, I didn't know if I was going to be able to go to it either.
Yeah.
I had my surgery less than a week, like about a week before the premiere. Like I had my I had staples over all where they'd like cut me open and stuff. I had them removed the morning of the premiere. So
they should have made a film about us trying to make it to the premiere. It's so dramatic.
Honestly, and when I was in hospital, I was having like good days and I'd have a bad day, and I was like, I just want to go home so I can go to this. And it was like sort of hit or miss at one point if they was going to let me go. And then thank God they did, and I went home. And then it was, oh, is she going to be able to deal with going up to London, be that without like, do you know what I mean, medication and all that sort of thing. But luckily it all worked out all right. I got my staples taken out fine. And then it was just so emotional because I hadn't really been out I hadn't been out at all since my surgery. And then to get all dressed up and then all my family to see me because none of them had seen me since. And I had all my friends there, and yeah, it was really special.
It was really lovely. You looked amazing. You had such a nice outfit.
And I hope that's going to be the first of many for both of you. So a couple of questions. So yeah, I've got another anonymous question just asking, Eva, what advice would you have for aspiring scriptwriters in getting their work actually seen? Do you think a postgraduate study is absolutely necessary?
I don't think postgraduate study is necessary to get your work seen. You know, for me, doing postgraduate study, it was good because, I mean, it was actually focused on directing my postgraduate study, but I did some writing as part of that. And it was just a good time to have a bit of space and time to, you know, work on ideas and kind of have that, what's that word, like low risk work, you know, where you make work, but it's not like a big commission or anything like that. It's for a film school or whatever, and it was really good. But obviously it's expensive to go and study, so I wouldn't pin all your hopes on that if it's something difficult to do. And I think there's so many other ways to do it, although that's a particular route I've gone down. I think it's a good idea, if you can, is to do short films, short form work, and there are, I think, some funds available for that, or maybe you can do it in a low budget way, and self-fund, even if it's a really small amount of money. Or if you're a screenwriter and you don't know a director or you can't direct it yourself, I don't know, I think you should. It's tricky. It's a tricky thing, I mean, I find it tricky as well, and I've made a feature and shorts and stuff like that, but I think you need to try and make some relationships with people in the industry, different companies or different maybe development execs that are people like BBC Films have new talent execs, which you can connect in with. I think it's like important to try and work out who's who in places. Sometimes don't try and get in touch with like the head of a company that might not have time to talk to you, but there's a lot of maybe junior people who are reading a lot of scripts and might be open to reading stuff. But I totally sympathize it, if whoever's written this is struggling, because it's a difficult thing to do. I think the main thing to do is just don't be too shy about your work, like get it to a really good point and then try and get people to see it, because people can be really, really helpful in the industry. And I know it can be quite scary to put yourself out there, though.
Great. And the other question, earlier on, we were talking about where Perfect 10 kind of fits in British films at the moment.
Yeah.
And the question is, between Rocks and Perfect 10, with the freshness of the casting and the improvisation of the dialogue, do you get a sense that we're seeing a new wave of naturalistic British cinema?
Well, I don't know. I hope so. I mean, I really hope so. I'm not a film, theory. I don't know. I'm not sure. I'm just sort of doing my own thing. But, I think there's always been actually really amazing British cinema and naturalistic cinema. But I think it sounds like there's been a couple of really interesting things recently. And also there was an article in Independent, which I was included in the other day, which is about this. And it was talking about Rocks and Perfect 10 and some other films as well. I sadly can't remember which ones they were. But I think it's funny because I'm glad people are starting to talk about this in a positive way, because sometimes I think people can be a little bit sniffy about naturalistic British film. it's this term I can't stand that people gets bandied around, social realism. It's like, I know what the term means, you know, in a theoretical way, but I think it gets bandied around an awful lot, and people often mean like really dour kind of like a certain type of social realist kind of film. And I don't know, I just think anyway, sorry, I'm blabbing about that. But what I mean is that I really hope there's more films that kind of take British characters seriously in a naturalistic way and have fun with them and have really engaging characters from all different kind of backgrounds, you know? I think that's so important in filmmaking.
Yeah, and some really strong female voices coming out at the moment as well.
Not just, you know, sometimes people are really scared to do films about women that are complicated. Sometimes like women in or girls in films can be like really, people can do kind of a bit sometimes like boring characters who don't do very much, or they're scared to make a female character who does bad things, you know. But actually, you know, from the history of cinema, all the best characters are those who do bad things and good things and are relatable, even though they're doing weird, strange things. And I hope there are more female characters like that, and done in a naturalistic way, because I think it's so interesting to explore those kind of stories.
Yeah, because that's the thing that came across to me very strongly, was this sense of honesty and truthfulness in the work, and that's, you know, and that's all to be encouraged and celebrated. And the last question I've got on the Q&A thing is for you, Frankie. What's next? Acting, gymnastics, or something else?
I want to do acting. Like Perfect 10 really made me realise, oh my God, this is, because I wasn't really sure before that. I thought, oh, maybe I'll be a gymnastics coach, but you can't do that much with that. It's kind of, I just didn't know what I wanted to do. And then I did Perfect 10 and I was like, oh my God, like, what have I been doing? This is exactly what I need to do. I just loved it so much. I've done a short film last year, I think it was, called Shag Bands, that's going to London Film Festival, I think.
Yeah.
I think it's on the 7th of October. Might be wrong, but I think it is. So that's really exciting. And then, yeah, just trying to do as many auditions as I can. And
Great. Have you got yourself an agent?
Yeah, I've got an agent, which is really nice. I just hopefully can get some more like work soon, because this is definitely what I've decided that I want to do now. So, and
I'm so happy to hear that, because it's just so lovely to know that it would be a crime if you don't have a career in acting, as far as I'm concerned, but it'd be lovely to know that you continue to do it.
Yeah, no, it like made me realise that it's what I want to do and where I enjoy being, and the sort of people I enjoy being around as well. I just loved it all. It was great.
Fantastic. Well, we're coming towards, I think we've slightly overrun our time, but I'd just like to say thank you to Frankie, Eva. It's, you know, I mean, part of what my company is about, 606 Distribution, is about kind of finding voices that haven't necessarily been represented. Particularly, you know, I'm very much in about empowering the voices of women in film, and it's such a pleasure to be part of your journey. I feel like I'm kind of tacking on the end a bit, and it's just been such a joy for me to see the response that the film's been getting. And, you know, hopefully, I mean, you know, I'm filling in the BAFTA application form soon for the film. I know that it's been entered for the BIFAs. And so who knows? I mean, it's actually a very strong year for British film, and I'm just delighted that you're part of it, and I'm delighted that I've been able to help on the journey.
So you distribute the film. You did such a beautiful job of it.
Oh, thank you. And you know, and so thank you to both of you. Thank you to BAFTA for the opportunity to chat tonight. And thank you to Creative England, BBC Films, iFeatures, Garaho, and everybody involved in this lovely journey. And it's going to be available on the BAFTA website until the 23rd, I believe, at the moment, but also it's available on iTunes and Curzon Home Cinema and all the usual places, and also it is going to be on the BBC later in the year, I believe.
Brilliant.
You know, that's part of the deal that I've got with the film, is that it's going to be on iPlayer and stuff later on in the year.
Yeah.
So I just want to say thank you ever so much to Eva, Frankie. It's been a pleasure to chat to you. Thank you to everybody who's taken part, and thank you for the great questions. And thanks ever so much, and good night.
Thank you, everyone.
Yes.
Bye.
Bye.